Well, Eddie, the Footprint Centre here in Phoenix. We've had some fights here, haven't we? We've had Bam versus Quadras, the near riot with Daniel Jacobs and Chavez Jr., Johnny Ryder more recently against Simon Munguia. But talk to us about June the 29th, the atmosphere, in particular from the Mexican fans with the soccer game or football game the night after.
Yeah, I mean, Phoenix really fast becoming, I think, one of the best fight cities in America. You know, here many years ago, you're right, Danny Jacobs against Chavez, there was nearly a riot that night because Chavez quit after starting the fight quite well. The press were just talking to me about it. They still talk about it. There was like, I was in the ring and I had the ring card, like, you know, cards over my head. There was beers coming in. There was a shoe actually went in at some point as well. And I don't mind it. I'm not mad on that, but I like the energy. I like the sometimes the hostility as well, but also just the vibrancy of the crowd here. They're knowledgeable people. They're extremely passionate about the sport. Of course, there's a very strong Hispanic Mexican fan base as well. And if you throw in the soccer game, as we just had to say, between Mexico and Ecuador on the 30th, June 29th was an obvious date to come to the Footprint Centre. Do that with Bam against Estrada, you know, future legend, current legend, two pound-for-pound greats. It's a massive night, huge night, brilliant fight. And you have to take your hat off to both guys. You know, it's part of a very big DAZN schedule and a fight that we're very excited about. We think we're going to fill this place up come June 29.
How many is it set up for at present?
I think you've got the bottom tier is going to be looking at about 8,000 or 9,000, which, you know, we're already well halfway through that already. And then you've got the top tier as well. It's a strange market here, or just in America in general. You know, you do probably about 30 or 40% of the tickets in the last week, which is very different to the UK. But we see always a huge walk up here, and I think we can get up to the 12, 14, even more come June 29th, because that weekend is going to be a very lively weekend for Mexican sport fans. They're all going to be descending upon this city, and they're all going to be out to support Estrada as well. And Bam has made this a little bit of his second home. You know, he boxed here, won the world titles against Quadras, and of course unified against Sonny Edwards in his last fight here. So, you know, people have seen him fight here, and he's a great champion.
It's been nearly 18 months since we've seen Estrada in the ring against Chocolatito in a trilogy. How much could that have to play, the inactivity, the ring rust?
I think you never want to be too inactive, you know, around that 12, 15-month period. But at the same time, like, it's not like he's going to change a lot. Like, I think he can have the right sparring to get him 100% ready. You know, Ioka was trying to get him to come to Japan. But interestingly, and they said it up there, this was the fight that they identified as actually the one they like, because... And Juan Hernandez was after giving it the big one up there, wasn't he? About, I actually think, you know, what's interesting about resumes? You can always argue them, right? You could say Quadras was past his best. You could say Rungvisai was past his best. You could say, I don't know, Sonny Edwards has never actually beaten any of those guys, you know? So I think that, I guess you can debate it how you want, but they think they're too big for him. They think they're too good for him. And, you know, Juan Hernandez just came over to me and he went, what's your honest opinion? What's your honest opinion about this fight? And I was like, I don't know. I said, you've got to make Jesse fight hard in this fight. Like, I don't know how you beat Jesse. Like, you've got to hurt him. You've got to outbox him. You've got to out-hustle him. You've got to outwork him. You've got to do all of those things. But if there's anyone that can do it, it's Juan Estrada. Like, he has ice running through his veins, not phased in the slightest. And he'll be ready to give it everything June 29.
You mentioned there Team Estrada identified Bam as the opponent. You could also say the other way around as well. I think Robert Garcia has been very public about this. Bam said, you know, he still remembers some comments that Estrada made from years ago, that he was too small, like you say. It kind of is personal, but it isn't as well at the same time.
Yeah, it's respectful. I mean, Jesse also made a good point there about how, you know, the Sonny Edwards build-ups kind of hardened him to any criticism. And, you know, although they were having half a pop, after being in a fight with Sonny, it's easy work, you know, at press conferences. So Bam's matured a lot. You know, I see that even just in the way he looks, in the way he carries himself. Starting to see him realise that he's a superstar now, and he is. You know, he's a young man who's already established himself in the pound-for-pound list. He's fighting everybody, you know, that he can. And I think one of the reasons, you know, there's two guys that you really focus on around that division. One is Estrada and one is Chocolatito. We know as well that Bam, of course, is managed or has an agreement with Mr. Honda, who also has Chocolatito. And he's one of those guys, he doesn't want to put his guys in with each other. So that fight, every time I've mentioned it, it's just been like a no-no. So Estrada's the guy you chase, and Estrada is the guy who beat Chocolatito last time out. So, you know, it would be a massive victory and a scalp if he could come through.
It would be a bit of a shame not to see that fight. You know, he's obviously beaten two of the original flyweight kings, but like you say, obviously respect Mr. Honda's wishes. Just talk to him about Bam and his future path. He alluded to at the top table there, we've got bigger plans than this. Obviously not looking past Estrada, but can you maybe share any suggestions? Or
Well, I mean, if you want a soundbite, can we just call out Naoya Inoue now at 122? You know, and I think people talk about Inoue going up and fighting Tank. Why can't Bam go up and fight Inoue as well? I mean, that's not got Robert Garcia's blessing, but it's been talked about in the past. And I do see, you know, Bam in the last fight really struggled to make flyweight against Sonny, and it's mad because they were talking about him winning world titles at 108 as well. So I think he now knows that Superfly is his division, but he will 100% move to bantamweight at some point, 100%, maybe even to super bantamweight. So that's going to be the change. Every now and again, a generational great fighter comes along who the only way you can beat them is by making them go too far up the weights. Naoya Inoue, great example. Lomachenko probably in his prime as well. I mean, Lomachenko's a guy maybe could have even, you know, started his career at feather, then ends up moving up to lightweight, and you just see him get outsized by people. There's other fighters as well. Maybe Terence Crawford, if he moves up and goes to 160 or 68. As I said, Inoue, another guy. I don't think there's many that can beat Inoue at 22. What about 26? 30, then it starts to become too much of a disadvantage, and that's really where you may end up seeing Bam get challenged the most, up at 18 and 22. So I truly believe that Bam will be at least a 3-division world champion, maybe 4 and maybe even 5. I mean, that's really the disappointment of not capturing a title at 108, because I think he could have done that as well. So, and he ain't going back now. So let's see him come through a very tough test first on June 29.
Talking about going down the weight, Sonny Edwards fighting Adrian Curiel in the chief support here. Where does a victory put Sonny Edwards?
You know, you got to take your hat off to Sonny Edwards. This is a tough fight. I mean, you got to understand, in here on June 29th will be 10,000 plus Mexicans, right? He's fighting a former Mexican world champion who always comes to fight. So to bounce back in your comeback fight, in a fight like this, away from home again, deserves a lot of credit. I mean, stupid or smart, we'll find out. But you know, if Sonny's is who he says he is and who we believe he is, he wins that fight. And when he does, he comes straight back. The fight we want to make is Galauya fight. You know, it's a fight that would have a huge amount of spite. It's a fight that would be a blockbuster for British boxing. We need fights like that. Ideally, you'd always want that for a world championship. That's not always possible. But really, you know, we want to make that fight. If Sonny can come through, I believe he will, but I believe it'll be a tough fight. And he'll have to be at his best. But I think Sonny's the type of guy that you're only going to see him at his best when he knows the heat's on.
6 months on from Ramla Ali's revenge in Monte Carlo, just announced it was deep in negotiations with the WBC champion Mercado. I've seen you on your phone in the last sort of 10-15 minutes. Any news you can bring us?
Yeah, I mean, look, we rocked into town hoping to announce Ramla Ali against Mercado. I mean, again, Ramla coming into the backyard, Mercado, the Mexican world champion, you're coming into this cauldron of support, and that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to do it the hard way, fighting one of the longest standing champions in the sport. We came here to announce today, terms were already agreed, but we don't have a contract yet. However, I am, you know, good with Fernando Beltran, and I trust him and I believe him, and we're just tying up some loose ends, and I believe that fight will get announced in the next 24, 48 hours. Another brilliant fight for the card. Ramla tends to want to do it the hard way. You know, she got knocked out in that fight. She came back. She wanted a straight rematch. A lot of people said not to. Now, you know, she could have pushed for a shot at the world title in the UK. She's deciding to come here and fight the Mexican, so you've got to give her props, and she can win that fight. And if she wins it, you know, you're up in a division with Erica Cruz and Ellie Scottney, and that unified fight's going to be on the table. So that would be a massive fight for her.
So much to talk about. Obviously this week we've got a fight in Mexico, we've got a press conference on Friday, so we're going to catch up tomorrow in Philadelphia, I believe. So we won't go into too many other talking points, but just to set the scene, Boots Ennis coming home, you signed him, you won the purse bid. How delighted are you to deliver him that opportunity?
Massive, because you got, you know, that run coming up. Obviously next week you got Fury Usyk and Opatara and Cordina. And then, you know, after that, you're talking about Jack Catterall against Josh Taylor. It's going to be a packed-out Leeds Arena. It's a massive all-British fight. The 5v5. You know, then you go into Subriel Matias in Puerto Rico, and then you've got the 22nd great card in Birmingham, 29th here for Bam against Estrada. And then you're talking about going to Philadelphia for Boots Ennis. I think you've seen the response. I mean, you know, you run our digital and social media department. You know the response of the signing of Boots Ennis. Everybody knows how good this young man is. Now we take him home. You know, we take him to the Wells Fargo Centre. It's the first time the Wells Fargo Centre has ever had a professional boxing, let alone World Championship boxing. I think we're going to do really well. You know, when we brought Haney home to San Francisco, everyone went, they don't have boxing there. He's never boxed there. We did 16,000. So can we do that for Boots Ennis, or can we go deep into the, you know, the double digits? I believe so. Press conference on Friday, huge turnout from the media as well. This kid's a superstar, and it's not going to be an easy fight. 2 undefeated fighters, but big time boxing back in Philadelphia. It's going to be a huge show.
We'll touch on that more tomorrow, Eddie. Thanks for your time, and yeah, we'll see you in Philadelphia.
Cheers.